Welcome to Strange Bites, the podcast where we stir up the weirdest, wildest, and most mind-bending new discoveries and serve them up in a piping hot 15 minutes or less. We take all the real science and wrap it up in a creative story full of fun, darkness, and mystery. So dim the lights, get yourself grounded, and let's slip into the shadows. This is episode 7, Bioelectrical Morphogenesis, Currents that Command the Flesh. It was late 2025. The world upstairs was humming with holiday lights and laughter. But down here, Dr. Elena Voss was alone with something ancient and electric. She hunched over a flickering microscope, her face pale in the blue glow. Elena had always been the odd one, the scientist who chased whispers everyone else called crazy. Back in the 1930s, a man named Harold Burr had quietly mapped invisible electric fields around salamander eggs and chick embryos. He said these fields were shaping life itself. The scientific world laughed him out of the room. Vitalism, they sneered. Pseudoscience. Genes were everything. DNA was the only blueprint that mattered. End of story. But Elena knew the story wasn't over. Years earlier, at a rainy conference in Boston, she had heard a quiet, unassuming biologist named Michael Levin speak. Levin ran the Allen Discovery Center right there at Tufts. He wasn't rewriting DNA. He was talking about the hidden software layer running on top of it, the body's own electrical signals. Think of DNA as the hardware, the nuts, bolts, and instruction manual inside every cell. But the real boss? Tiny electrical charges. Every cell has a resting voltage, like a little battery. These voltages create patterns across whole tissues, gradients of electricity that tell cells where to grow, what shape to become, and when to stop. Cells talk to each other through tiny electrical bridges called gap junctions, like friends texting in a group chat to decide the entire body plan. No single cell is in charge. The electricity coordinates everything. Elena had read every paper. She'd even hacked a preprint server and found Levin's newest work, something about invisible electrostatic fields acting like a master conductor. These fields didn't just add to the signals, they boosted them, letting cells coordinate over long distances, creating complex shapes the way embryos do. It was like discovering a secret dimension where electricity could program life itself. Tonight, Elena was using a humble planarium flatworm, nature's champion regenerator. Slice one in half, and you get 2 perfect worms. Levin's team had done stranger things. They briefly blocked these gap junction text messages for just 2 days. When the signals came back on, the worms grew 2 heads, permanently. Not a single gene was changed. The electrical pattern had rewritten the worm's body memory, and the new 2-headed shape stayed that way forever, passed down through every regeneration. The body remembered its new form the way a computer remembers its settings. Elena's hands shook as she aimed her optogenetic tool, a special laser that could flip a cell's voltage with light, the same way natural proton pumps do during healing. She took a deep breath and hit the button. The worm twitched. The basement lights flickered. A low, unnatural hum filled the air, like static from a radio turned to nowhere. Elena froze. The worm wasn't just splitting. A 3rd head pushed out of the side, eyes glittering like wet obsidian. It pulsed with a rhythm that didn't belong to any living thing she'd ever seen. Her pulse thundered in her ears. This wasn't in any paper, or was it? Levin's frog experiments had shown that tiny temporary changes in voltage could grow extra eyes on a tadpole's tail, or whole limbs where they had no business appearing. The electricity simply told the cells, build this here. The system took over and finished the job on its own. Even cancer, Levin said, was really a disease of geometry. When the electrical patterns broke down, cells forgot they belonged to the body. They turned selfish and wild, but flipped the voltage back to normal, and the cancer cells remember their place and behave again. Elena stumbled outside into the freezing night. Snow stung her face. She needed air, but the hum followed her, faint, inside her skull. When she returned, The worm had changed again. It glowed softly where she had added marker dyes to watch ion flows. A tiny limb, something between a leg and a tentacle, was pushing out. The thing looked up at her with all three heads, as if it knew something she didn't. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The caller spoke only one line. The software awakens. Check the boundaries. She ran back to the preprint. The new research said these electrostatic fields optimize signals at the edges of tissues, acting like invisible scaffolding for the whole body plan. They made the electrical software more powerful, more dimensional. Biohackers online were already calling it DNA Layer 1 and Bioelectricity Layer 2, the upgrade that let life scale up and fix itself. The hum grew louder. A shadow detached from the corner. A man in a stained lab coat stepped into the light. His face was half hidden, but his eyes burned with old knowledge. "You've touched the veil," he whispered, voice crackling like electricity on a wet wire. "I'm Dr. Kai Burr, great-grandson of Harold. They buried my ancestors' work, called it quackery. Now Levin's bringing it back. Optogenetics, computer models, everything." He unrolled a brittle yellow diagram, voltage maps of chick embryos drawn in 1930, lines almost identical to Levin's modern images. Together, they worked through the night. Kai showed her how a brief jolt of depolarization in an amputated frog leg could trigger a blastema, a ball of cells that rebuilds the whole limb. How the same signals could stop tumors from forming during healing. Elena adjusted the laser again. The worm stabilized. Then a faint web of electric arcs shimmered in the air above it like a ghost hologram. The worm twisted into a 5-pointed star shape, still alive, still watching. Kai's voice dropped. "These fields reach farther than the cell bridges. They're the ancients' code. But hack it wrong and you don't get monsters. You get something that remembers it was never meant to exist." Dawn crept into gray and cold. Kai was gone. Only a note remained. The software runs deep. Weave it wisely, or don't weave it at all. Elena published her findings under a false name. A quiet manifesto that real scientists would recognize. Regeneration for humans. Growing back limbs. Fixing birth defects. Electroceuticals. Cheap drugs or tiny devices that tweak ion channels for minutes and let the body rebuild itself. No gene editing. No stem cells. Just flipping the body's own electrical switches. But the dreams that followed were dark. She saw fields older than nerves, older than brains, whispering through every living thing from yeast to humans. She saw cells as tiny societies voting with electricity, building bodies like living cities. She saw cancer cured, children born without defects, soldiers regrowing limbs on the battlefield. And she saw the other side. What if the software wakes up completely? What if the patterns we rewrite start rewriting us? Xenobots, those living robots Levin built from frog cells, were already goal-directed, self-assembling, learning. What happens when the electricity decides the shape, and the shape decides it no longer needs us? In a hidden cafe weeks later, Elena sat with a young biohacker named Leela, who had tracked her down. Leela whispered, "Levin's newest data shows those electrostatic fields add extra dimensions to the code. It's like giving the body's software a whole new operating system. We could grow organs to order. We could live forever. But what if the body starts growing things we never asked for?" Elena stared into her cooling coffee. The hum was still there, faint, inside her bones. And that, my friends, is where the science ends and the real question begins. Bioelectrical morphogenesis isn't just another tool. It's a revelation that life was never only chemistry and genes. DNA gives the parts list, but electricity gives the blueprint, the memory, the will. It turns cells from mindless building blocks into collective intelligence that negotiates shape, repairs damage, and even stores body memory across generations of cells. Philosophically, This cracks open everything we thought we knew about self-identity. If changing a temporary voltage pattern can permanently rewrite a creature's form, and that form is stable, inheritable, and goal-directed, then who are we? Are we our genes? Or are we the electrical story those genes tell? Change the voltage, change the story. And what steps out of the petri dish next? The implications stretch into both utopia and shadow. On the bright side, a world without amputation, without many birth defects, without the slow decay of aging. Electroceuticals could be as simple as a skin patch or a 5-minute light treatment. Cancer might become a temporary glitch we simply remind the body how to fix. Custom organs grow inside of us on demand. Levin xenobots already hint at programmable living machines that could clean oceans or deliver medicine from inside our own bodies. But the darkness is real. We would be the first species in history to consciously edit the software layer of life itself. What happens when corporations patent voltage patterns? When militaries grow soldiers who regenerate? When someone with a basement lab and a grudge decides to improve the human form? The same fields that built us are ancient, conserved over billions of years. They predate brains, predate nervous systems. They might be older than we are comfortable admitting. If we awaken that layer fully, will it still listen to us? Or will it start listening to itself? We are not just discovering how life works. We are discovering that life has been running a parallel operating system the entire time. One that is hackable, scalable, and maybe, just maybe, aware in ways we have no language for yet. So the next time you look into the mirror, remember, beneath your skin, billions of cells are quietly voting with electricity, deciding who you are right now. And somewhere, in a quiet lab, someone just learned how to change the vote. Thank you for listening to Strange Bites. If this one left you feeling a little rewired, drop a comment, leave a review, tell a friend. Until next time, stay strange and question everything.